This is 1059 The Region. I'm station manager Tina Cortez. And this is Health is Wealth with Dr. Mike Carrozza. Good morning, Dr. Mike. How are you enjoying working from your home studio these days?
Well, good morning, Tina. You know, it's becoming the normal. Of course, we're getting in this the swing of things. Of course, and it has its challenges, but it definitely has its benefits as well. So I think maintaining the schedules and eating well and the ability to exercise as much as we possibly can is something that I think when we come out of this, we have to think about what can be. There's probably going to be 5 major issues that we're going to have in terms of not so positive. But if we can come out with one thing really good, and that's our own health, where we're or our own relationships, or we can focus on our personal self, our spiritual side, our personal relationships with our loved ones, our families, with our children, and most importantly, we could really focus on eating healthy and doing things properly, like exercising, meditation, and yoga. So, if we start, thinking about taking the positives out of this and the silver lining, many people have been discussing about this. Many people have been talking about what can we do to sort of make this fun or make this something that we could remember. And we're going to all remember this. We're going to all go back and say, what did you do in 2020 amid this COVID-19 issue? What were you doing? And so I think we could establish and get into ourselves and our own routine where we're working out, maybe even starting a garden and staying connected to loved ones. It's social distancing, but not social disconnecting. So it's very important, and we have to have that fine line, and that where we're doing these things. And so meditation and yoga is going to be really good. And getting outside, we always discuss about getting outside, and I think that's going to be really, really important.
Absolutely. And I think, the weather is certainly going to help. It's a great, the forecast is fantastic this weekend, so that'll certainly help. But I've got to ask you, Dr. Mike, and I think it helps all of us, our listeners as well. Do you ever get off track? Do you feel like, sometimes you're not on that schedule, that you lose your routine? Because I think it brings a lot of us comfort to know that, everybody is going through this, that we're not going through this alone.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, listen, when we come out of this, we're going to come out of this, and we're going to come out of this together, and we need to count on each other to assist in making this, these health strides. And the truth is, we go through some rough patches, and we're out of this schedule. We're like, are we still here? Are we still doing this? Part of, I'm almost like a military sergeant when it comes to certain things, because I'm used to the quarantine lifestyle. Let me explain. When I went to university and then medical school thereafter, I moved away from home, and I had to, because I had to bunker down, because I'm a very social individual, and I found that being social was really challenging. Now, you have to remember, Tina, 20 years ago, there was no Facebook, there wasn't no Instagram, there was no FaceTime. There was basically, you remember the calling card days, Tina?
I do.
Yeah, remember the calling card? So it was like, that's how it was. And I was used to bunkering down for weeks on end, and people didn't see me. And I'd come home with a beard and like for 4 weeks on end and be like, oh my God, he's coming out of the library. So I know what it is to bunker down and to really focus on the tasks at hand. And so, yeah, there are, and some people are not used to this. And that's the unfortunate aspect, is that, but when you get down and you just think about, when life gives you lemons, you got to make lemonade, Tina. And I love that saying, because you got to just focus down. And if you focus at the tasks at hand and just continue, we got to truck through. We still got to worry about finances and worried about how we're going to get out of this and come out on top. And there's a lot of things that we have to make and sort of making the right steps. But yeah, there's times where I wake up and it's like, man, are we still doing this? Are we still here? This sucks. But it's ways in which we have to get ourselves, and that's where the meditation, the yoga, and that's where we have to transform our minds to become more powerful now than ever, because we're going to rely on this more than ever. And this is where we're going to keep that mental status really clear. And there's certain things that I think are going to help with patients. I spoke about this in one of our segments, but right now omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil, is the one documented, well-documented, researched nutraceutical that I think is going to be the most important, because there's not a lot of people that are going to get fresh fish nowadays. And so being deficient, so things like heart disease and diabetes and weight loss and inflammation, if you think about omega-3s and how they can keep your brain in terms of dementia, Alzheimer's, and keeping your brain and the cognition and your focus and your mental focus, and obviously reduce things like anxiety and depression, is another key factor of omega-3 fats from fish oil, which I think are extremely important. So these are really key. This is a really key supplement, and it's something really easy, and I give it to my family, and I take it every single day, and I would recommend all our listeners to consider it. But a couple things I want to talk about, Tina, this morning. I want to talk about amino acids. I want to talk about amino acids are the building block for our immune system. So amino acids are these, mostly are the building blocks for our body. So we need amino acids to build things, and predominantly it's our immune system. Now, amino acids are more prominent in obviously protein-rich food. This is one of the reasons why for our elderly listeners, the elderly population, their immune system starts diminishing as a result, because the amount of protein these individuals consume. As we get a little older, we don't crave protein. Our digestive system slows down. Maybe a carbohydrate is easier to attain, and then the protein sort of becomes lower, and then this is where the amino acids become lower. And this is what some of the researchers are believing is as to why elderly people become frail. Now let me explain one amino acid right now that a lot of people need to think about, especially when it comes time to viral infections, the cold, the flu, COVID, whatever have you. So taurine is an extremely important amino acid. Now it's formed from cysteine, but as we get a little older, the taurine supplies starts becoming lower, so we don't make enough of it. And so, if you consume a lot of coffee, this can actually inhibit the taurine absorption. And also B6 deficiency will actually cause this as well. But let's talk about why taurine is important with respect to the immune system. So 50% of the white blood cells is our neutrophils. This is the cytokines that are actually going to respond. And a lot of people heard about the cytokine storm that results with certain viral infections. Now neutrophils will take up vitamin C, but they hold on to taurine, and this taurine will cause taurine chloramine. Now, what this does is this taurine is going to actually neutralize. So basically, it's going to burn the entire, just using the analogy of burning the entire forest, because if you have an invader and you're like, how are we going to get to this? Let's burn the entire forest and see what's left. That's going to inhibit the cytokine inflammation, and that's the problem with the lungs. That's why these virus and viral infections, and that's why it's infecting a lot of the elderly population, because they're looking at something like taurine. Now, let me give you a little clue. Why is chicken soup, by the way, so good for you? A lot of the reason being is that the amino acid, first of all, you have a lot of the amino acid taurine that's present in chicken, especially the dark meat. Now we know about the bone as well, and the bone broth from the chicken has a lot of the properties, but predominantly there's a lot of taurine in that meal that actually is going to boost your immune system. And then some other sources are shellfish, clams, and mussels and scallops, but for sure, turkey and chicken are sources, and a little bit better sources as well. And then that's the big picture when you think about taurine and how it protects. But most importantly, we want to talk about how to get the proper nutrients and the proper diet. And I think eating a balanced diet with ample amounts of protein is going to be absolutely essential for us all.
So not a good idea, no matter what your age, to stay away from the protein, especially at this time.
Yeah, no, I mean, and so for our vegetarian patients or for our vegan patients out there, this is not to say that you need to consume meat, but we're saying, taurine has its high concentration in animal protein. That's for sure. That's a fact. But we're just saying that if you are a vegetarian and if you are predominantly vegan, then you need to just supplement accordingly. And then, we're going to make a list of all the supplements, and we'll talk about that in our next segment, where we'll talk about what vitamins we think are probably the most important, and that's next week. But for the most part, yeah, supplementation is key, and just really be cognizant and consume a lot of different varieties of vegetables and protein. There's different, for vegetarian and vegan patients, there's a lot of different protein sources out there. But if you're going to have like a bowl of chickpeas, you need to have it with a carbohydrate to get the full spectrum of amino acids that you need. And that's going to have the proteins that you need because you don't want to miss one versus the other. So that's the idea, Tina.
All right. So exercise, get outside, eat a balanced diet. We got it. Over to Dr. Mike right now for today's first guest.
Oh, thanks, Tina. So today we actually have a wonderful guest. His name is Dr. Ken Adams. He's a medical doctor and a dentist with over 40 years of clinical experience. He's here to make the connection between weight, stress, and pretty much something we've all been battling with right now. Dr. Ken, welcome to our show.
Good morning, Mike. Pleasure to be here.
Well, no, it's a pleasure to have you. I mean, really want to jump just into a few details about yourself. So first off, you're a medical doctor and a dentist. So basically, you've gone through medical school twice. And when we've done the pre-show interview, you basically said it was not until the second time of medical school, obviously dental school is still a medical college, medical establishment, is when you actually made the connection and different connections. And I can imagine that. Having gone through a medical program, I could really respect and understand. And doing it twice, by the way, I don't know how you did it, kudos, but you did it and you made some really good connections. Can you just chat about that for a few minutes?
Sure, Dr. Mike. First time through in early medical school, you're learning all this basic science and you're memorizing isolated facts, but you don't have the clinical experience. You're not putting that information together. You're just learning things in a disconnected way. Having gone through my internship in medical training, practical in hospital work, working with patients and understanding disease states, when I sat down and had to relearn every enzyme and metabolic pathway and every bacteria and virus and physiology and anatomy, I basically started integrating that information at a higher level and have a much better functional integration of how the body and the organ systems and everything functions, which gives me a lot of insights, which is what functional medicine really is. Understanding the core concepts instead of treating the symptoms and like Band-Aids, getting to the root cause of what's causing weight gain or fibromyalgia or many other disease states.
I mean, in terms of your book, Weight Loss Explained, I mean, you get into these where the weight loss and stress actually are affecting each other, correct, Dr. Ken?
That's correct. Stress results in high cortisol, and there's several mechanisms by which cortisol promotes weight gain and promotes insulin resistance. One is the fact that cortisol causes your body to become very catabolic. It basically shuts down the blood flow to the digestive tract, so you stop digesting and absorbing nutrients, and causes you to break down proteins and turn them into sugar. So it dramatically raises blood sugar levels and dramatically raises your insulin response, which then promotes fat storage and fat conversion of sugar into fat. Also, cortisol basically blocks the conversion of T4, the storage form, long-term storage form of T4, of thyroid hormones in the blood, into its biologically active form, T3. So a short period of stress for 15-20 minutes won't make much of a difference, but when stress becomes chronic and ongoing, the levels of T3 go down, and your mitochondria, which respond to thyroid, shrink and slow down, and basically every metabolic process in the body is slowed down. So low hypothyroidism basically causes insulin resistance by reducing the synthesis of the oxidative phosphorylation enzymes in the mitochondria, the energy factories in your cell, and dramatically slows down fat, sugar, the metabolism of sugar, and also slows down fat burning. So high cortisol causes you to store fat and shuts off fat burning. And so if you're trying to lose weight and trying to go into ketosis, doing a ketotic diet, which is trying to put your body into fat burning mode, cortisol actually blocks that and makes fasting dramatically less effective, or calorie restriction less effective. Stress is a major contributing factor to obesity and insulin resistance.
So, Dr. Ken, it sounds like a bit of a vicious circle. What advice do you have then for our listeners to manage stress and thus manage their weight as well?
Well, that could be the whole several episodes on its own. Just part of the problem is looking for the solution instead of feeling victimized. When you feel victimized, there's no hope, and that's a major cause of stress. But another form of stress is when you're calorie restricting. Exercise is very stressful because you don't have the glycogen reserves to restore your blood sugar levels, and your muscles are burning a lot of sugar. So what happens is when you calorie restrict and you're going and trying to achieve ketosis or weight loss, your body gets your glycogen and stores of sugar are reduced, and when you exercise, your blood sugar crashes, and you promote dramatic increase in cortisol. So exercise is very, very stressful in terms of causing a dramatic increase in the cortisol release, which then will slow your weight loss. So it's really important during ketosis or fasting that you do conversational cardio and don't do mega workouts.
Yeah, so that's the key. I mean, I think, Dr. Ken, you're absolutely right. You know, you made some really good points, and I just want to clarify for our listeners, hypothyroidism, which is the hypofunctioning of the thyroid gland. I mean, we just have to break it down for our listeners out there just so they understand. So the hypofunctioning of a thyroid gland will allow these glands to not function as well as it normally will, and then this will cause accumulation of excess thyroid hormone in the blood, and then the inability to convert the active constituents, as you mentioned, and this is the T4 to the T3, so into the active T3 form, which is the vital form. A lot of these individuals currently, especially our listeners, are maybe taking a thyroid medication, and this would be a synthetic form of T3, a synthetic form of T4. And this is the biological inactive form, as we mentioned. But the connection, I think, which is really important, and especially to Tina's question, is that this cortisol and thyroid connection, a lot of people don't understand how really important it is. And you know, when you just look at weight loss, and I know, Dr. Ken, you specialize in weight loss, and this is something that one of the specialties you do, it's really important to look at all factors. And I think, you know, it's important, and you used a couple of examples, and we had our pre-interview here. You know, I love the example you used about a tractor trailer, and I'm gonna just showcase this for a second, Dr. Ken. Is you speak about, you know, an 18-wheeler. And an 18-wheeler having flat tire. How is this 18-wheeler going to be able to trek down the road? And equivocal to our bodies, you know, this 18-wheeler is, you know, and our bodies have multiple faceted issues, and there could be many problems with our bodies, and that's equivocal to the flat tires. And if you just replace one or two of those tires, you're not getting the whole picture. Is that right, Dr. Ken?
That's correct. So when you have multiple things slowing down your metabolism and causing insulin resistance and weight gain and fatigue and brain fog, and if you fix one or two tires, that truck is still not moving very well. And so I use this analogy, especially illustrating people. If I say you're low in vitamin D3, which is a critical, which is actually several tires, just taking vitamin D3, you might not feel a huge difference. Just taking B12, which is also very important for cellular energy and metabolism, you may not notice a difference. Just taking them. But the more things if you do several things, you take vitamin D3, you take a B complex, you take a multivitamin which has trace minerals and fat-soluble vitamins and B complex in it, and you fix several tires, the person's going to definitely notice that their cognition is better, their memory is, they're not so forgetful, they have more energy and zip. But just
Wonderful.
doing one or two things. So a lot of people will take vitamin D and say, well, I don't feel any better, or I don't feel any difference, and that's part of our limited ability to perceive things when it
Wonderful.
comes to our bodies.
Well, wonderful, Dr. Ken. So thanks for joining us on this show, Dr. Ken. I really appreciate your, obviously, your information, your insight, and obviously your expertise and experience. And what an amazing segment we're going to have. And also, we're going to have you back next week as well to just talk a little bit about some more factors and how to control things and how to detoxify the body. So thank you very much, Dr. Ken, for coming on the show. Back to you, Tina.
Thanks, Dr. Mike. And if our listeners want to contact you directly, how can they do that?
Well, they can call my office at 416-633-3905 to schedule a consult. Especially once the COVID-19 epidemic ends, we'll be able to be taking new patients. But we are doing virtual phone consults. Also, I have a website, AskDrKenAdams.com, which they can look at and get information there about my new book on weight loss.
Wonderful.
That's terrific. And Dr. Mike, how to contact you?
All right, so patients can reach us at 905-417-4000. Of course, they can email us at info@applemed.ca, or they can check us out on Instagram at AppleMed Clinic. And just to all our patients out there and everybody out there, to stay safe and healthy, and we'll be in touch soon.
If you missed any part of Health is Wealth, go to our website, 1059theregion.com. Thanks for listening.